This lesson is in acrylics. It is the very first lesson in my speed painting series. There's only a little bit of advice I can give you here, and that is to keep your horizon line low and try to have a glow coming out of the middle of the painting.
To start our paintings, I have up here an artboard. This is an artboard I bought at a convenience store. It's not a proper artboard, but it's good to demonstrate on. Over here I have my palette. That's a normal palette. I'm using a chopping board. I find quite useful. Also, you might need another board to do a bit of practice on. So you can paint on canvas if you wish. You can paint in oils or you can paint in acrylics. I'm painting in acrylics today. If you're painting in acrylics, just use normal white. If you're painting in oils, use titanium white. I'm using a size 10 flat hog bristle brush, and I'll brush the paint on with a crisscross brush stroke. I call this my crisscross brush stroke. I use both sides of the brush and brush the paint well into the board. It's a good idea to get used to painting along the board in this direction. Paint along the top and then slowly moving down. So you paint right along the top of the board with this brush stroke. You see I'm putting a lot of paint on. I need to put a lot on because I'm painting in acrylics and it dries very quickly. If you're painting in oils, you need to take a little bit longer and brush it well into the board, well into the canvas. And if you're painting in oils, also you will need to thin your paint slightly. Oil paint tends to be a little bit thick for this style of painting. Crisscross brush stroke. It is good to practice crisscross brush strokes at the top of your sky and long brush strokes at the bottom of your sky. So we're painting the undercoat for the sky now. So we'll come down 2/3 of the way down the board. That's the undercoat, and brush it all in with white. If you're painting in oils, your paint will stay wet. If you're painting in acrylics, your paint will go dry. Mine's a bit dry at the moment because of this rather porous board. That's okay. Long brush strokes at the bottom of the sky and short brush strokes at the top of the sky. With the acrylics at times, I spray with a water spray, very fine spray. But don't spray anywhere where you have anything detailed. It does tend to run. So that's it, a nice coat of paint over the top 2/3 of the board. That's the white undercoat, and that is the basis for your sky. And then pick up a little bit of burnt umber. Make sure you pick it up on the tip of your brush. Don't squash your brush on when you're picking up paint. And take it to the top of your board and put it on in the very corner. Use a crisscross brush stroke and it will mix with the white paint. It's right across the board, and as you come across the board it will fade. And when you're in the middle of the sky, you'll have very pale brush strokes. I have still some paint on my brush. You might have to pick it up again, so I'll put it there. And then I'm going to clean my brush again. No need to clean it in water or terps all the time. Pick up a little bit more paint and I'll put it there and crisscross. Also, make sure you get right in the corner with your first brush stroke, and that's the start of your sky. We're painting in brown and white because it's easy to learn to use the tools and practice the brush strokes. A little bit more paint, nice and pale. I need to put white on again because my paint's drying so quick.
Now for a similar scene, but this time in
right
oils.
In the middle of the board here.
These videos were made
We're
at
blending
La
our
Trobe
paint
University.
There's a hare. I'll pick him up.
It's quite a detailed exercise, and you notice that in those days I had a lot more hair than I have now.
And finish your sky off by blending your paint all the way down, slowly from brown to white at the bottom. I have to put a lot of paint on here. Keeps drying. That's okay. And make sure the middle of your sky is bright, a nice pale colour, right in the middle of your sky. Don't worry about your brush marks, they can be clouds. So that's our sky finished. So have a look at your sky now and make sure there's nothing there that looks like a box or a circle. Or there, I'll just brush that out a little bit a little bit there. And make sure you've got no circles or boxes. And don't blend it completely, and don't worry too much with it. Have it coloured at the sides and pale and bright in the middle. Now for our background trees. I'll clean my flat hog bristle brush and just draw a dark line right across the painting. That's about a third of the way up the painting. These will become trees, so their shape will change from a line to tree shapes. Not dark enough? Make sure they've got plenty of dark in them. We'll come along with the light later and put the sunlight in them. That's the dark part of our background trees. Now with my round hog bristle brush, that's a round size 12 hog bristle brush, I'll dirty the brush in brown, mix a bit of white in it, so the brush becomes putty-like. Then I can pull it into the shape I need. So I'll pull it into a chisel shape, from round to chisel shape. On one side of the brush, I'll pick up white paint, right on the tip of the brush, on the very tip. White paint. And bring it to the middle of the painting and dab your first lot of trees sunlight on. That is, right in the middle of the painting, and work out to the right. Dab, dab, dab. These are little mushroom shapes forming into umbrella shapes, and that's the basis for our tree shape. So that's why we needed the darks, and then we put the light, that's the sunlight, on the trees. I'll pick up some more paint again. You can practice this on your practice board if you want to, or you can practice on your painting. But it's a good idea to practice on your practice board, then you don't have the fear of spoiling your painting. Well, that's our distant trees without branches. I've loaded the brush again and started again in the middle of the painting, and this time I'm putting the sunlight on the other side of the tree. This is to keep your eye into the picture. Make sure you don't leave any dark above your tree. Put the white right on top of the tree. Dab, dab, dab. So that's our tree brush stroke. Now my brush still has paint on it. You may need to reload your brush. I'm going to unload the brush here by rolling the brush like this. I'll put the flat side of the brush on and turn it as I move along. There's not much paint on there, so I'll put it there and roll the paint off by turning the brush and let the paint come off. We're going to run out of paint, I think. No. And that gives us our first bit of the background. Try and retain that white line. I'll do it again with more paint and roll it off. Also, watch that you come up at the end. Don't drop off the edge of the picture. We don't need that. Again, to bring the eye into the picture. And with that, we can put a few brush strokes of white here. If you're working on a big painting, you'll need bigger brushes and you'll need a lot more paint. But these little paintings don't take a lot of paint. Fill in the white bit first, and then from the corner you can paint in your darks, like this with your crisscross brush stroke on both sides of your brush. I'm using my round hog bristle brush. So we touch up this bit here, but not too dark up there, and not too light either. The whitest bit of the painting should be in the middle. And then across the other side, clean your brush first, and then put your dark right in the corner and fill your corner in again. And a little bit of white paint, give it a tint. So that's our background finished, and the undercoat for the foreground. and the row of trees. We'll put the branches in those trees later. Now we need to turn this into grass, so I'll put a lot more paint on, ready to be turned into grass. And the paint, I'll put it in layers. I'll put some white, some brown underneath, and some white over the top. And then with my fan brush I can easily make that into grass. But first we need to touch up any wet paint up here and turn it into little grass. There was a little bit of brown on my brush. That's very little grass in the background. Now if you run out of paint, put some more paint on. If you're working in oils you won't have this problem with the paint drying. And turn it into grass. That's it. Dab, 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 dab. Backwards and forwards, like a typewriter, go right across your board. Go backwards and forwards right across. And there, turn this into grass. And then above that, over that, you put the dark grass right over the top. That's our grass brush stroke with just a normal fan brush. So do that over the whole area to be turned into grass, but try and keep this white area here. It's important that we have a white area there. If you lose your white, put some back in there. That's if you need to. That's it. Clean my brush. Dab, 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 dab. More paint. And a little tiny bit of dark here. But not too much. Make sure you keep that white in the background. And as we come forward, the grass gets bigger. You can practice this on your practice board too if you wish. Practice your grass brush stroke. Don't go back over it if you help it. Try to just do it in one stroke. I'll put a little bit of dark in the corner there to show you. If you want to, you can come up very dark. That gives you a lot of perspective and it brings the foreground very forward and takes the background back a long way. We need to put branches in the background trees and then we'll put some big trees in the foreground. With any of your paintings, try and keep the white in the middle here somewhere, always in the middle with your white. If you look at one of the old masters and just squint and let the light go very dark, you'll see a white glow come out of the middle somewhere. It might be the man's golden helmet or it might be something else. There will be a white glow come out of the middle of the painting and it gives you an attraction and that attracts your eye to the picture. And that's what we're looking for here. With my little round soft brush, I've loaded dark on it. I'll load light on it too, so I've got two colours on that brush, white on one side and dark on the other. Not loaded very evenly, and with that I can paint branches in these little trees. The secret is you must hold it with 2 fingers. Practice this too. It's so easy to grab it and hold it with 3 fingers, but you will not get those little tiny fine lines. It's very hard to draw fine lines with 3 fingers on the brush. If you hold a brush like a pendulum and let it almost fall out of your fingers, you'll find that the paint will just stick to the picture and you pull it up and you get very fine lines. So not too many lines, just here and there in the dark spots. We need a few branches, but not too many. And if you feel brave, you can have a dead tree. We have lots of dead trees around here. Keep working right to the edge of the board. Not too many, and if they lean, let them lean into the picture. I'll put a few dark ones there because there's not much dark there. Well, that's our background trees finished. Now with my clean painting knife, keep it clean, make sure there's no wet paint on your painting knife. This is a steel painting knife, quite flexible. A painting knife is a crank one. A palette knife sometimes hasn't got that crank, so make sure you get a crank painting knife. It's not very big. You'll see by the size of my finger. You'll get a painting knife that you'll get used to and you'll get to like it. We'll go over to the palette and on the knife I'm going to pick up 2 colours. I'm going to pick up the dark on one side and the light on the other. and to get them exactly where I want them, I'll spread them out with my finger. There, just what I want. It's pretty thick there, quite a lot of paint. And with that, I'll sculpture in our first gum tree. Not too close to the edge, about there. That's not a quarter of the way, just a little bit this side of a quarter. You can practice this on your practice board too. It's a good idea to have a bit of a practice before you paint it on your picture. Put the tip on and pull it down. Weave it around a little bit. Come straight across the tree line there. Don't weave it on top of the trees. It might line up with the top of the trees and cause some confusion to the eye. There we are. That's the stem. Don't bend it too much right on that line. Try and bring it straight across there. I'll touch it up a bit and darken the butt. And with the fan brush, touch up the grass underneath. And with our little brush, we can draw a few twigs. Then touch up the grass again around the twigs. And a bit of bark hanging off the tree. Then go to the top of the tree, and with a little round brush again, we'll paint a few branches. It might go up through the top of the board, that doesn't matter. Hold the brush, 2 fingers, drop it on, and twiddle it round a little bit, and pull it up and slowly move it away from the board. That'll give you a thin branch. Have them leaning into the picture. Branches can be both dark and light. There's 2 colours on the brush there. So that's our first gum tree. Not too many branches at this stage. If you need them later, you can put them on. At this stage, it looks quite good as it is. It looks very rustic. Load the knife again. I think I'll lean this one, yeah, maybe here. Curve it round a bit, and then straighten up as you come across here. It's a good idea to keep it straight in this area so the eye doesn't become confused with all the intersections. And if you wish, you can do another one. Something like that. Touch up the butt. Put a little bit of dark in there. Tidy up the grass. You see these bits here that aren't so good, don't worry about them. If you want to, you can use that to your advantage. There's a bit missing there, it doesn't really matter. This all comes together as a composition. If you start detailing everything, you'll have to paint every leaf on the tree, and that's not what we want to do. And up the top again, a few more branches in the same way. And with the oil paints, you will need to thin the oil paint to get it to come off the brush. Acrylic paint usually is ready to come off the brush, but oils always need thinning. You can thin your paint in any medium, whichever you wish to use, terps or any medium. Thin your oils to a consistency of about toothpaste. With these branches, have them jagged, like that. Also, make sure you have branches crossing each other. And try and have something with a little bit of character coming into the picture. And bring this one into the picture a bit like that. That gets your eye coming around the picture. Look up there, round there, along like that. Now for a bit of foliage on those trees. With my round hog bristle brush, dirty in paint, pull it to a chisel point. If you're working in acrylics, it might dry and you need to wash it. If you're working in oils, you can pull it to a chisel point like that with the oils on it. As long as it's dirty in the colours we're using, it'll be okay. Pull it to a chisel point, but if your brush is dry, load it with paint so it becomes like putty, and then you'll get the shape we want. Pick up the dark on one side, pick up the dark first, right on tip of the brush, right on the tip, and then the light on the other side. Now you've got white on one side and dark on the other. That's how we want it. And take it across to your gum tree, and here we got both colours. Now the light is the bit that's on the outside of the brush. So when we daub it on, we get a dark and light effect. I call that a mushroom. It's a dab mushroom. Dab, dab, dab. That's 3 mushrooms forming an umbrella shape. If you look at a gum tree, you'll see the top of the gum trees are all arranged so they become umbrella shapes. I haven't got a lot of light coming off there, but that's the dark part of the painting, it's the foreground of the painting, and that's okay. Don't lose your darks. We do need those darks. If it's too light, tilt your brush towards the dark, and if it's too dark, tilt your brush towards the light. You'll find good quality paint, the dark will stay dark. With a cheaper quality paint, the dark loses its vibrance very quickly. Burnt umber is a good colour to paint in, because when the picture's finished, it will look attractive. And it's very easy to practice in burnt umber. It's a colour you can buy anywhere, and it nearly always comes out of the tube with no problem. In oils even, it's ready to come off the brush. It's thinned out. Be careful not to make the tree square in this corner. The tree obviously goes up higher than the board, but don't make it square. In the background we have a dead tree. We can bring that to life by putting a few dabs on it, and then it becomes a live gum tree. But it must not be dark. It must be paler than this and possibly darker than that. Then with a little brush with a dark and a light on it, I'll extend the trunk of the tree down. That'll make the tree look like it's closer to us. I'll put a bit of shadow underneath it. That brings the tree towards us. So if you have a tree in the background and it looks a bit too big, bring the trunk down and that'll bring it closer to us. Let's put a bit of bark on here and a few branches on the other tree. Don't overdo it, not too many. And if you haven't got a white line here, it's a good idea to put a white line up the inside of this tree. As I'm pulling this brush up, I'm twisting it and the white will come off. 2 fingers, twist the brush, and your white will come off the brush. My acrylic's working okay, but if you're working in oils, it will not come off the brush like that with thick paint. It needs to be thinned down. Let's just touch up that grass there. A few flowers here, sloping into the picture. Practice all these brush strokes on your practice board. The practice board should be looking like a painting by now. Branch there. And I like birds. I'll paint an M. So that's our first exercise finished. That is the essence of all my lessons. Paint the sky, the background, and then the foreground. Keep your corners dark. In the sky, your corners dark. A very bright spot in the middle. Everything leaning into the picture. And things in perspective. Small trees in the background, they get bigger as they come towards you. That painting looks good with a brown frame and a white strip around it.